Hello, everybody. This is Corporal Kindel, returning for my second playlist. I just completed my first playlist, my first YouTube ever for Stars and Shadow. It ran 56 episodes. I am now ready to go to my second game, Dominions 5 Warrior of the Faith. First, let's go to the first thing I want to do is go to the preferences. I'm gonna change the sound down to a bit so it doesn't conflict so much. About 16, 18. We'll set it to 18. That seems okay. Okay, so Dominions 5 first. Okay, first I want to say this is an unbelievably cool game. Dominions 5. It is a turn-based strategy game set in a fantasy setting. I've played it since it came out in 3, 4, and now this is 5. 3 came out, I believe, around 2007-ish. 2004 came out, I think, around 2013 or 14. And Dominions 5 just came out a week ago. You were able to buy it. I bought it the same day that it came out. I played a couple of just turned it on and just tested, ran a few turns just to test out the new AI, the interface, and everything else on number 5. And I watched several of the YouTube videos, and I went back and reviewed my old 4 Dominions 4 manual, which I purchased the print-on-demand manual. Well, before I get into Dominions 5, I'll just say a little bit of my gaming experience. So that's my Dominions 5 gaming experience. I played the strategy games my whole life. I prefer turn-based strategy games. Basically grew up on Avalon Hill war games. I played the Third Reich, Advanced Third Reich. I played Magic Realm. I've also played Squad Leader, probably my most favorite game of all time, easily. Squad Leader. I play tested Advanced Squad Leader for the Avalon Hill Game Company back in 1985, and that's where my username comes from, Corporal Kindel. 7-0 Leader for those of you that have played that. And I played other games, too. As far as PC, computer games go, I've played, Dominions 5, Master of Orion, Imperialism, Sid Meier's Civilization, Colonialism, or I should say Colonization. Sid Meier's Colonization, a great, another really good 4X game. That's like Civilization, but it's set more in the colonial era. Other games I played, as far as space games, Master of Orion, Stars and Shadow. I recently purchased that. I like that. And as far as other turn-based and fantasy, I played Dominions 5, or Dominion System. We've also played, what was that one that came out recently? What's the name of it? Blah, 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 blah. Endless Legends. Endless Legends, a really cool 4X game. I like that one. And then, of course, in the standard, Earth-based, I'll use, say, for Earth-based games, Civilization, Colonization. I've also played some train. I've liked a few train games, Railroad Tycoon, and games like that. In general, I like turn-based as opposed to hand-eye coordination games. I always get blown up in hand-eye coordination. Not to mention the fact I just don't really enjoy hand-eye coordinate that much. I mean, I don't like games that are based upon how fast I can move a mouse cursor or click a button or shoot, first-person shooters. It's just not my games. I mean, there are exceptions. They got some real-time games that are, use the term real-time strategy games. They're really more in the, closer to hand-eye to more than they are in strategy. But there are a few of them that I liked. I mean, Distant Stars was okay. I liked that. What was one called The Age of Mythology? That one was all right. But in general, I like turn-based games. That's just, what I prefer. So I'm going to be playing Dominions 5 Warriors of the Faith. I'm hoping I want to do a little bit of explanatory stuff as I go through this too, at least in the first couple of episodes for new players to the game. I enjoy playing on large worlds. I don't like playing on like the micro things against really two opponents. That's just basically you should, after playing 4 or 5 games, you should be able to win against 2 players in a rush game, no matter what the difficulty settings. Now that's my opinion, but just it's just too easy to beat just a small number of AI opponents. That's one of the reasons why I always play larger games. It's just the way it was. I always play larger games, set the difficulty, ramp it up as high as I can. So normally I play with the max number of nations. In this game it's 30, but since that would take a very long time, it would probably take 100 episodes, I'm going to cut that in half. We'll play on what I would consider medium. I consider anything under 10 small. 10 to 19 would be medium to me, and 20 to 30 would be large. So I'm going to be playing medium. That's my definition of medium at 15 nations, just to get things going a little so that it doesn't take quite, instead of 100 episodes, it may just take 50. We'll see. I don't know. It depends. I feel pretty confident about my ability. I usually always do. Like I said, I've been playing these games all my life. I have a very good just base understanding of these kind of games from a lifetime of playing them, and even if I picked up a brand new game, I would feel like I would do pretty well right off the bat. In this particular game, I've got hundreds of hours under my belt playing Dominions 3 and 4. It is on my top 10 list, so that tells you it's an excellent game. It is an incredibly, for those of you that like 4X strategy games, you will love this game. I'll go far. If you're a hand-eye coordination game player, you probably won't be interested in strategy games, and vice versa. So let's get into it. I plan on playing Neifelheim, and which is the Giants. I'm going to be using a new strategy because I like playing new strategies. I don't like playing strategies that other people have done already. So the nice thing about this game, it is so unbelievably varied. Some people say that it is a hard game. It's hard, and like chess is hard. Chess is really, the mechanics of chess are unbelievably simple. I mean, a pawn moves this way, moves forward, attacks to the left. A rook will move straight, unlimited differences, straight or to the side. Bishops, he moves diagonally. Etc. A knight will move 2 and 1 across. That's it. But if you want to play good, you got to understand the deep game. The deep game, being able to predict, many turns in advance. That's what makes chess an unbelievably cool game. This game is like chess. You could just pick this game up and play it. And anybody that's never played a game, and you seriously pick it up and play it. Just recruit units, buy some leaders, put some leaders, create squads, move and attack, and really not know anything else. Seriously. However, if you want to play the game good and be able to play competently, you need to understand more of the game, and that's where it gets into its detail. The detail, there are so many units. There are thousands of different units. Every nation is well worked out and has a rich uniqueness and flavor to its own. And that's one of the things I love about this game, and the fact that there are so many magic items that you can craft. There are hundreds and hundreds of magic items. In some of the YouTube videos I've watched, some players will comment that, well, half of those are really not necessarily. Well, the only thing I could say to that is it's nice to have things available for different strategies. What strategy do? You may want to have a strategy that's based around having a lot of protection, having good armor. You may want to have a strategy you're fighting a guy that's got a like Tiss, for example, that has a lot of poison dudes, and you may want something that you may need to buy a lot of those cheap poison resistant things because you're facing Tiss, or maybe you're fighting against Maverni that's got the astral mages with a lot of that have a lot of things that could really spells that could really hurt you that you need magic resistance, so you want to buy some magic resistance items. So that would be top. So a lot of those items are really as an as needed basis versus specific nations, which is cool. And also they're items that you would build just strategy around. Maybe as giants, you typically want a lot of regeneration. You can either go for the so you could go for a divine bless that increases the regeneration in Dom 4. That was certainly a big strategy, especially for giant nations, as I said, because 10% of a big number is a big number. If you have a giant that has, say, 60 hit points, well, that's 10% of 60 is 6. That's a big number, as opposed to 10% of 10, which is only 1. Small nations with a lot of guys that are human, 10-point guys aren't going to get as much out of regeneration as will a very things with large hit points. But you can also get the same thing for their items. For example, there's a regeneration. There's a ring of regeneration, which also gives you 10%. That's as good as a bless. Of course, you got to build a lot of them. Build a lot of them. They are pretty expensive, but it is a good item. So that's what I like about this game. It's incredible variety. It is not a this is a game you could play 100 times and it would be different every time. That's one of the things I really, really like about it. It's open-ended nature, incredible diversity of strategies and units. Make it just every game a new game. Okay, so we're gonna go into the let's go into the create world. I'm gonna create. We're gonna create the world. Okay, I'm gonna go with 15. First of all, this is the first setting for new people that are coming up. This is your first thing you're gonna choose from. You're gonna either choose a random map, for example, just generate a random map, or there will be other maps here. Right now, there's only 2, 3, I guess. 1, 2, 3. These are maps that can be modded. One of the nice thing about this game too is it has a very, very rich modding section, so people can actually create their own maps, It's very easy to do that with this particular game, which I think is a big draw for a lot of people. I've actually created a mod. It was a large name mod for number 4, and I never actually completed it because in this game you get a lot of units. You want to you start creating a lot of leaders. A lot of them will have duplicate names, so I wanted to create a mod that just made a unique name for all of my leaders. I still have that mod somewhere, and I'll probably finish it up at some point, but do it for 5 and not 4. But anyway, so I'm not going to use one of these other maps that have been created. I'm going to go with a random map. We're going to go with a completely random map. I'm going to go, it's medium. This size is kind of misleading because it's 15 province per player, but if you have 15 player, 15 times 15 is going to be what? 100, it's going to be 125, something like that. 15 times 15. So whereas if you only had 3 players, there would be 45. There's a big difference between 125 and 45. So the lands get really big. A medium with a lot of players is really a large map. Anything over 100 provinces is going to be a large map, in my opinion. That's how anything from, say, under 30 is probably small. These are, of course, are my personal gauges. Between 30 and 100 would be medium. Over 100 is large. Maybe 200 would be enormous. Over 200. So we're going to go with medium. 15 provinces per player, and I'm going to have 15 because I'm going to have 15 opponents. We are going to enable the north, south, and east, west wraparound. So this is going to create a true spherical world. If there's anything I really don't like in games is I hate corners. I mean, they're just so gamey. I mean, really, you start in a corner on a map? I mean, please. I mean, it's just so, I don't know, gamey is the only word that comes from. I mean, it's not realistic. I use that term very loosely when I'm talking about games. Realistic. Probably a better word would be natural. So there's really no way. You will always be surrounded no matter where you are on the map. You know, of course, you can take advantage of terrain features if there are mountains and you're, on the other side of the mountain, of course. Now that's reasonable and realistic, or rivers and oceans if you're on a coastline somewhere. You can take advantage of that, or peninsulas. And that's fine, because those are natural barriers that but just an arbitrary corner as you would have, or just, I hate that. I really like that they enabled that. So of course, I am going to enable all the wraparound. So we got a complete wraparound. So we're going to go to the next screen, and the next click OK. You're going to enter the game name. Okay, it's going to be RKK dash. I think I've actually saved 2 games, so I'm going to go 3. This is just my convention. I use my initials and then 3, 4, 5, etc. So we'll go okay. We're starting on 3. I'm going to start in early ages. The default is middle ages, but in the other versions, it was always the early ages. So the difference between the early, middle, and late ages is basically the early ages. You can think of the early ages more like stone to bronze age. There's a little bit more magic, and there's a little less armor. Think of the Middle Ages as really like early Middle Ages. If you want to compare it to Earth, early Middle Ages, like say the end of the Roman era up to like the Vikings, something like that. Whereas the late ages would be more like the Renaissance, where you have your full, really right before gunpowder, where they had the biggest development in armor with plate type armor and stuff. So that's kind of, that's a very loose generalization, but that's kind of how I would look at it. So we're going to the early ages, because this is just how I like to play, and we're going to go and we click OK. Okay, so now I am going to be playing on the hardest. The way I play is I play the way I always play. There are no restarts. No, what happens, happens. If I lose, I lose. I don't care. I mean, of course, I want to win. But if I lose, it's just about as good, because I will learn. And I tend to overestimate my competency, but just because I have such a... most of my life I've played in these kind of games, and... maybe I overrate myself, but that's how I like to play. And I'm going to play human. First of all, I'm going to change my guy. I want to make sure before I forget to Neifelheim, and that is how it's pronounced, Neifelheim, according to the Scandinavian pronunciation. So we're going with Neifelheim, and we're gonna randomize 15 nations. So we're going to add 15. Here's 1. Oh, for God's sake, that's not what I wanted to do. Random. Oh, add new player. Okay, I set it to impossible first, and it's random. I don't want to know exactly who I'm playing, so everything is random. And I've set it impossible. That is the most difficult level. We're going to add, so this 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, I've officially added 15 opponents times 15 provinces, so we will officially have... did I say 125 earlier? I meant 225. 15 times 15 is 225. So the map is a random map with 225 provinces, because I set it to 15 per nation, and there are 15 nations. So 15 squared is 225. We are not playing a disciple game. I have not used that. That came out in Dominions 4, and I just haven't used it. I probably will use it one of these times, but I just really haven't had a desire to for now. Eventually probably will. So there's our initial map settings or initial player generations, AI generations. So we're going to click OK, go to the next screen. Okay, so this gives you a very it just shows you your units. I'm going to get into more detail in a minute. I'm going to talk about all these units, but it's basically just showing you what they are. These the ones on the top here are your commanders, the ones at the bottom are your units, and you got one special site. This screen is just really just an intro screen. It's not really designed to do anything but an incredibly brief and overview. It gives you a very brief over. It doesn't go into much detail. There was one guy in one of the videos I watched he was right, and they said they should put a little bit more detail in this. Some of them were more of their special abilities, some of their nation-specific spells that they get. There's a couple of every nation has some nation-specific spells that are only good to that nation. For example, these guys have the Brood of Garm, which is a summoning spell which summons these huge wolves. These winter wolves are really... I plan on making use of that spell. But I'm not going to go... It gives you a background. I'm not going to go into the backstory of the game. I mean, it's just that every nation has a very diverse backstory. New players can read that if they want. I'm really not so much interested in the backstory as I am in just the mechanics of the game. And playing the game. That's what I want. So we're going to click OK. We're going to the next thing. Okay, so this is probably the single most important event of the game. This is incredibly important. This is where you're going to generate your scales, your leader, or I should say your pretender god. The name of the game is Dominions. That's the name. And what that means is, if you'll notice down here, it has this scale called Dominions. Dominions is a level of, you can look at it as faith. The people praying towards your pretender god. And the higher your Dominions is, the more people that pray towards your god. And the stronger your nation is in a way. So you have, with this screen, you have a ability to set your scales, which I'm going to talk about, and create your physical form. It's incredibly important. And as I mentioned, it's the single most important step in the game. This is really, really important. So I've already decided what kind of strategy I'm going to use. I'm going to select a physical form. I'm going to talk a little bit about these different things. Okay, so basically you got 4 little categories right here. The ones at the top are your basically immobile. They're immobile with the highest dominions. These are the guys you want to, in general, you want to choose from this guys to get the best bless effect. I think that most people will choose these, and we'll check either asleep. If you notice on the previous scale down here, you got dormant, imprisoned, or awake. Awake basically means your guy, whatever pretender gets, starts immediately on the map at start. See, but you get 0. You don't get any extra points. Whereas dormant, dormant will take a year, give or take a couple of months. So it'll be, say, each turn in this game is a month. So a year is 12 turns. Each turn is a month. So your guy won't appear until a year, give or take a 12 months. So it could be anywhere from 10 to 14 months. But you get 150 extra points to buy worth of stuff to buy, which is very nice. And then if you go to the next level down, imprisoned, which is a similar thing to dormant, except your guy's out for 3 years, which is 36 turns. Most players do not choose imprisoned because most players probably play multiplayer in this game. They're playing against other human players. If your guy is out for 3 years, you're going to lose the game in a multiplayer game. So that's probably why. Or most players play very small maps. If you're playing very small maps, you want to do a run against two, what I call a micro game. I don't like micro games against 2 or 3 AIs. I would always go with Awake and just choose the most vicious monster that I could go run around because it's the easiest way to win. There's no point, I mean, in my opinion, just my opinion, to create anything other than Awake on a micro scale game. But as I am playing large, everything is open. You can any one of these are as good as the other. I'm playing for long term, so I want really good scale. So I'm going to be going imprisoned. I am taking the imprisoned. I wanted those extra points, and we're going to go. We're gonna select a one of these guys. Okay, so let's go a little bit. The strengths of these things. Like I said, these are immobile things. These are, you could think of them as like titans, like powerful titans. Of course, you also have the Demi-Lich. The Demi-Lich has 3. He's got 3 hit points, but he's got his own strength too. He's got a lot of the special abilities. But anyway, for example, this is a guy that I've played a lot. The son of Neifel. He's a variation of the Neifel Jarl. He's good in water and death magic. There are 8 magic paths in this game, so water and death are 2 of those paths. He's got 11 research. If he's set to research, he'll research 11 a turn. He's got a cold resistant. Of course, he is cold, so he's going to get extra. He wants to be in cold and not hot. So cold resistant. Any damage that against him is cold resistant 25. That means it's reduced by 25. It's like having 25 protection against cold effects. I'm going to talk into more detail on how defense, precision, and how protection works. He's got a chill aura that surrounds him, so you could think of him as like he exudes an aura of chill, which is in this it's rated at 17. So all the spaces around him are getting affected by a 17 chill level, which causes every unit around it not to take damage, but to take fatigue, which is a huge concept in this game, is the concept of fatigue. Fatigue, if you get to fatigue 100, your guy will pass out, and he's basically immobile. He gets all kinds of minuses to attacks, and it is very bad. At minus 200, he becomes basically comatose, unconscious comatose, and they will take damage, physical damage. You do not want to get anything over 100, but even large amounts of fatigue are bad because in this, it subtracts from your attack ability. So if you're attacking, your fatigue, it subtracts from your attack and also will subtract from your defense. So if you're attacking a guy, you want to attack a guy that has a lot of fatigue, and conversely, you do not want to have a lot of fatigue when attacking. I'm going to go into that in a minute. When we get into our first battle, I'll discuss the intricacies of how the battle system works, and you'll see how the fatigue, but it is a huge, I can't overemphasize it enough, concept in this game, fatigue. He's got snow move. That means he's not adversely affected by snow. In this version of the game, you get during winter and snow provinces, you get -4 movement to your movement. In this game, they have map of movement. Believe it's current map movement 20. Oh, he's got an armor. You can move 22. But it's like it's a little different from the number 4 game. So basically, each province has a terrain cost based upon the cost to move into a province is based upon the terrain. Open ground, I think, is 6. Swamp or something is like 12. I think a mountain is I want to say 14. I'm not 100% sure. Each terrain has a different cost. So, for example, if he was moving through 3, he could move through 3 open grounds, 6, 12, 18. If it was 3 open grounds, he could move through 3. That's pretty darn quick. That's nice. So that's all map, and he's got snow move. He's not reduced for terrain. He's got cold power 1, so that means if I click, he's powerful in cold resist. There's more detail to this. I believe cold power, each one, if I'm not mistaken, it adds 2 to your. It will add 2 to your defense, protection, and attack for each level that you have. So, for example, 1 times 2 is 2. So if you're attacking in a cold 1 province, you will get an extra +2. And you will get an extra +2 to your defense, and I think it's protection. I believe it's all 3 of those. I could be wrong about that. Conversely, if it was heat, if these in a heat scale, it works just the opposite. It's -2. You want to be in cold, or at worst a neutral, neither cold or hot. Once you start getting the heat, these guys get it's really tough. So if he's in a heat level 3, and with a cold 1, you're talking about 1 times 3 is 3. Each one is 2. So 3 times 2 is 6. You're talking about a -6 to hit, -6 to protection, -6 to defense. It is really, really bad. It's hellaciously bad to be in a heat province for these guys that have cold power. Conversely, they're super strong in cold, so players got to be aware of that. If you've got a guy that has heat or cold, that it works the same way for heat. There's a version of this is for heat. Some nations have heat guys that have heat power, so it works the same way. Ice protection. I believe that gives you, is it +3? Will have a higher value in the cooler province. Warm, reduce the protection value instead. So I think the way it works is if it's +3. I think if it's in cold provinces, it gets reduced in warm province. So if he's in a heat province, maybe it's -3. 3 minus 3 will be 0. I'm not sure how much it gets reduced in hot protection, but it's basically adds to your protection in cold. So 3 will add to your protection, which is important. In a very basic way, I'm going to talk in detail about the attack, but you compare your attack skill to the defense skill with a dice roll, and if the end result is higher than the defense, you hit. So it's kind of like a 2-hit roll. I play Advanced Squad Leader. In that game, you had a hit and effects roll. If you fire an artillery piece or a tank shot, it's something you roll to see if it hits. If it hits, then you roll for the effects based upon it. So this is kind of like that. Your first step is to determine if you hit by comparing the attack plus a dice roll to the defense plus a dice roll. If it's higher, you hit. If the defense guy is higher, you miss. Then if he hits, you do another dice roll plus strength plus the weapon. It's weapon plus strength plus a dice roll versus the protection. So protection is kind of like armor plus the dice roll. And whatever, if the attack one was higher, the strength plus weapon is higher than protection, then that's how much damage. The difference is how much damage is resulting. So if the difference between those two is 5, then you would take 5 hit points. 5 hit points would be inflicted, and if it was inflicted on this guy, for example, he would go down to 85. Then that's how it works. Basically, in a nutshell. We'll get into more details in a minute, but that's how that works. So that's what that guy has. Frostfather's got air and water, and most of these things are the same that I just explained. This guy has mountain survival and forest survival. So these things, basically, mountain survival allows your guy to move through mountains. He's good for moving through mountains, and I believe he gets benefits to supply when in mountains also. Some amount of some. I think that's how it's modeled. I'm not 100% sure. But it gives you a movement bonuses in mountain, and he's got a forest movement bonuses in forest survival. So you'll be moving. These guys will usually have armies of guys. So, and unfortunately, most, like pretty much 99% of the time you're going to have guys that are mixed. You'll have guys, for example, in his army that are not mountain survival, in which case the slowest you're going to get penalized. So if you're moving through a mountain and you have a guy that doesn't have mountains, so you won't get that movement bonus. It might be something that you need to consider when organizing your armies. Normally, I don't. My considerations are usually based upon other things, not just their movement. It's usually the least thing that I worry about. However, if this guy's moving alone, which could sometimes happen, or if he's just moving with a small retinue of guys, like for example, bodyguards. In this game, you can assassinate leaders. So you may want to put a bodyguard on. If he's just having a small bodyguard of, say, 3, 4, or 5 guys, it would be a good idea to have a bodyguard. Probably be a good idea to match his movement with the bodyguard types. Get guys with mountain survival, and in that case, and then of course that's a special case because you only want a few units that protect your guy. So let's look at the Great Mother. This is one that I like because she starts out with nature and earth. Okay, these are two paths that the Neifelheim guys normally don't have. The Neifelheim guys are really strong in water. They got water. What do they have? Water. What's the other one? Blah, 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 blah. Water. Yeah, they got water, some blood, and what was the other thing that they have a lot of? Doggone it! It was a water, blood, death. Water, blood, and death, I think, are the 3 things that they have a lot of. So this one actually has nature and earth, which are 2 really good. They're really, because they're paths with that Neifelheim doesn't normally have. Plus, nature's a really good path. Nature has a lot of really, really strong items. It's got rings of reinvigoration and regeneration are both nature items that require nature gems to build, and that makes them really, really valuable. It's probably, if it's not the best, it's probably the second or third most important category as far as forging items go, because there's so many useful items that are in the nature category. I consider it almost essential in virtually every strategy to have nature, to get a lot of nature. And she has regeneration, 10%, so that's very good. So, and especially that's the fact that she's got huge hit points. So if she takes 30 hit points, she's regenerating 18.5 a turn. I don't know if fractions are rounded up or down in this game. I don't. I'm assuming they're probably rounded down, but don't quote me on that. So 18.5, she'll regenerate 18 points a turn on tactical turns of damage. That is really good. Regeneration is much, much more powerful for anything that has got a lot of hit points on it. I mean, 18 hit points a turn. 18 hit points is more than a lot of units have. There are a lot of units that have 10, 12, 13 hit points. She regenerates more than a lot of units have in total. That is really cool. Of course, her defense skill stinks at 7, and attack skill stinks, unfortunately. But then again, you're looking for the leadership is really good. Magic leadership, and your leadership is basically broken down into 3 categories in this game. It's leadership, which can be looked at as basically most units. Magic leadership, some units are flagged as magic. They'll have a little symbol here of a magic unit. They can only be led. They require magic leaders in order to lead them. You can't use normal leadership they can't be used with normal leadership to be part of that leader's squad. And undead leadership, she doesn't have 0, or she has 0, I should say. Undead units are like skeletons, zombies. I believe demons count as undead. I'm not 100% sure. Some of the more powerful, probably the most some of the most powerful summons. There are types of demons that would fall under undead leadership, I think. Um, okay, so that's it. Oh, by the way, here's combat speed. That's used in the tactical battles. Map move is on the strategic map. Combat speed is how fast it moves on the tactical map. When battles take place, they take place on a chessboard something like a chessboard with terrain on it. You can I will set the grid on, and that's how it moves in squares. If it's anything like Dominions 4, I think it was 2 to move to the, to the up, down, east, and west, and 3 to go into a diagonal spot on the combat speed. Okay, so what else do we have? And then supply bonus. She gives a supply bonus, which is very useful. Do not underestimate that. 20 points. One of the things I learned I learned the hard way in this game, is once you start getting big armies, the provinces don't have a whole lot of supply. It is really tough to get really big armies going, because you will exceed the size of the supply on the province, and if that happens, they will start starving, and it gets really bad. So units will just, if they starve too many turns, they'll start dying, and their morale will go down. Their stats will actually go down. If you get into a battle, you'll have bad stats. There are ways to get around that, one of which is to have supply bonus, units with supply bonuses. There are items magic items which give supply, like the enormous cauldron of broth is a very important item in this game. I think it gives was it 100? Oh, blah blah blah. I think it was 100. I think the wine bottle gave 50, and the cauldron of broth gave 100. But I don't remember right offhand. I think that's what it was, if it hasn't been changed in this version of the game, which I don't think it has. So what do we have? The Keeper of the Bridge. Okay, the Keeper of the Bridge adds 2. I left clicked. Okay, physical 4. I wanted to right click. If you right click, it'll bring up the stats screen. If you left click, you'll have selected it. Okay, I don't want to select right now. I'm just perusing them, so I got to right click. So the Keeper of the Bridge has 3 paths. He's got one in air, earth, and nature. So I've explained a little bit of what nature does. Earth is a very good one too. That has a lot of stuff that add protection. For example, armor, protection. Remember what I just told you. A protection is armor that will reduce the amount of damage they do if they hit you. So protection is what happens if they hit you. Whereas defense, you could think of the defense as your dodge ability, your dexterity, your ability to, thrust and parry, dodge, duck. That's what defense is. Whereas protection is the thickness of your armor or your skin or scales for some monsters. How thickness of that. So that's basically what that is. So a lot of earth stuff gives you protection. And it also adds stuff to attacks, I believe. Wind, air mage. Okay, air stuff will add to your precision. Precision is a very important category. This adds to your bow. If you're firing bows, this is going to determine your chance of hitting. And magic. Okay, so that makes for example, if a guy's firing, a mage fires a fireball or something like that, the chance of it hitting the square that he shot at is based on precision. So precision is very important. You can think of it as accuracy, kind of accuracy. Having if you're talking about a rifle, a telescopic sight versus an iron sight. You could think of that where's a high precision would be like a telescopic sight. Lower precision would be an iron sight. That's kind of the analogy. So they're both important. They're important to both magic units and units that are firing bows. So if you have, there were certain air magic things that increase precision. So that can affect both your archers and your Mage's ability to affect a unit or hex that they're shooting at with a spell. So it's very important. Another very important. All these categories are important in their own specific way. Okay, so what else has he got? Patrol bonus. Okay, well, he's the keeper of the bridge, so he's going to be patrolling. In this game, you can actually infiltrate and send scouts and assassins, guys that can sneak around and do bad things, like assassinate your mage. I mean, if you've got a really powerful mage, probably the easiest way to get that mage is to get an assassin and just sneak into his hex and kill him. Believe me, I've seen it. I've seen it happen. It does happen. So this guy gives a patrol bonus, which means his ability to spot the guys that are trying to infiltrate are better. He's also got spirit sight. I'm not 100% sure. Makes it easier to spirit realm must see the issues of beings. Units with spirit sight get no penalties from darkness and can see invisible units. Okay, there are certain units that are invisible, that are ethereal units like ghosts. They can pass through walls and things like that. A very good, useful unit, especially when you're attacking castles. I've found in this game, even the weak ethereal units, if you've got a lot of them when sieging a castle, very useful against castles, as are flying units. Flying units and ethereal units are multiplied in their effectiveness versus castles, as I have learned that in this game very much. One of the things I've learned in the hundreds of hours that I played in Dom 3 and Dom 4 is just the value of ethereal and flying units when attacking castles. Both of them can go through walls, and they're very useful. In fact, I like to hoard them just for that. I don't like to waste them on just battles. I like to get a lot of them together because some of the castles can be really, really tough. So that's the keeper of the bridge. Let's go to the next. Let's go down here. These are monsters. Okay, these are typically the category of things that you want to get when you want to go awake. When you're starting awake and you want to do a rush attack, these things are really good at rushing. Like, for example, dragons. You could buy how they can fly, so they can fly to the rear of the enemy's formations and kill their leaders. They're really good at that. They have breath weapons. The son of by the way, one other thing I want to mention. The composition of these things, some of these will be available to all nations. Most, probably, well, I don't know if I want to say most. Many, if not most, are unique to one nation or another. I think that the Heims, Neifelheim, Vanaheim, and Jotunheim will have, all those three will probably have the sons of Neifel, but they may not all have some of the other things like the Sphinx, for example. I think that the Sphinx is available in one of I can't remember which nation right now, but it's not available to this nation. So there are a lot of unique units that are available to certain nations or a nation and not other nations. In number 4, in Dominions 4, these guys used to have that the worm, which I played with a couple times, which is very useful for attacking underwater provinces. But I see that it's not here now. Instead, they got this thing. I don't know. This is something new in this particular version, the Linomere. I probably will, some game I'll probably use it. Well, let's just take a look at its abilities. It's got Water 1, Death 1. It's got 9 Research. It's Fear. Fear is a very, very cool trait. Fear and Awe. So basically, in a nutshell, what Fear will do, Fear will cause morale checks to be taken on enemy units, and if they fail, they will rout, which is another incredibly cool thing about this game. This game has taken everything into consideration. They've taken into defense, attack, precision for arrow weapons, magic, resistance, combat speed, fatigue, encumbrance. They've also taken into account morale. Units do not just always stick around and just fight to the death as if they were, on fanatically berserk. They don't do that. Most units are going to reach a breaking point and they will rout. Units with fear has the ability to fear 11. If you notice way down there, it will cause morale checks against 11, and if they break, they will rout off the game. So how it works, I think, I know it's fear 11, so it's a morale check against 11. So when you're doing dice rolls in this game, it's two six-sided dice, which run in the background. It's an open-ended die six, so sixes get re-rolled. So, for example, if you roll boxcars, it's actually two fives. They subtract one from the sixes. So 2 6s become 2 5s, and then you re-roll the 2 dice. So let's say you roll the boxcars, and then you roll the 2 dice, and you roll a 3 and a 4. So you roll the 2 boxcars, they become a 10. Because 6 minus 1 is 5, 5 minus 2 is 10, and then a 3 plus 4 is 7. 10 plus 7 is 17. So you really rolled a 17. So in this case, 17 would have beat the fear 11, and they wouldn't have routed. Although if you're within its fear zone, the next round you will have to undertake it again. I think its radius is 5 squares out from, but don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. I'll look it up before the end to see what it is, but there is a certain radius. It's not the whole battlefield. Okay, it's just a certain radius from where the monster is. So units that are all the way on the back on the other side aren't going to be affected by the fear. He's got cold resistance like the other guy. He's got poison resistance, 25, so he's very unlikely to get poisoned. So I think the way that works is if he was struck by a poison attack, he would have a 25 resistance. So that adds to its, I believe, protection when attacked if he's got hit by a poison weapon. I believe that's how it works. So he's got swamp survival, so he moves faster through swamp, and he gets I believe what do you call it? An extra supply bonus when in swamp. He's got a poison cloud, which is very cool. This is like remember the giant that had the chill aura? Well, this is a version of that, but it's poison. It's got all of its adjacent hexes on the tactical board are hit by a 10 poison attack. So you've got to go if they fail the poison resistance against 10, they get poisoned. I think that's how that works. So everything adjacent to this thing has a good chance of getting poisoned unless they have a good resistance. What else does it got? Spreads death. I'm not sure about that. How does that? This unit will affect the growth of the entire province. Okay, it's poisonous, so that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? It's going to kill off populate on the motherboard, on the strategic board. It'll start killing population and spread death because it's got a poisonous cloud. And it's got a Dragon Master. So what is that? This commander will receive a bonus when subbing Dragoning with Conjure. Okay. There's a summoning spell path where you can summon. There are all kinds of monsters in this game, which is, like I mentioned, it's got hundreds and hundreds of. There's thousands of units, hundreds and hundreds of monsters, many types of dragon units. So this guy gets a bonus when summoning dragon units or dragon-like units. So that's another one of his special abilities. So of course he's a monster. He's going to get really strong hit points, and look at his strength, 25. His strength is really huge. He's got big claws. His attack skill is 15 versus 9. Compare that. Remember, the Great Mother had an 8-7. So this thing is almost double the attack skill of the Great Mother, and a little bit better defense. Precision 10. That's average, I guess. Combat speed 10 is a little bit slower than that other unit. Magic leadership is a 5. Undead leadership 30. Leadership is 80. Encumbrance and fatigue. Encumbrance. Okay, that I didn't mention encumbrance. Encumbrance. Basically, encumbrance is is all the stuff that he's carrying. How much that adds to it's going to add to fatigue every turn. So, for example, if he's in, I believe, the way it worked in Dominions 4, his encumbrance only starts adding when you're actually in contact and battling on the tactical board. So if you're, for example, if he's just moving on the attack but hasn't got adjacent to an enemy unit, he doesn't actually gain encumbrance. Once he gets into battle and starts swinging, this encumbrance value adds each turn. So he will add 2 encumbrance, which adds to his fatigue each turn. So if he's in combat, every battle turn 2 will start adding to his fatigue. So the first turn, for example, he swings, it'll be 2 added to fatigue. And so he'll have 2 fatigue. The next turn it'll add 2 more, it'll go up to 4. The next turn it'll go 2 more and add to 6, etc., etc., etc. So it keeps accumulating. As you can see, if it accumulates past a certain amount, remember I said that fatigue is also subtracts from your ability to attack, and when somebody is attacking a fatigue item, it'll subtract from your defense. So the longer the battle that goes on, the more fatigue the guy gets, and that happens to everybody. It's not just so in many cases. One of the things you want to look at, and this is a very, very important point in this game, is the ability to minimize or eliminate the amount of fatigue your guys get. So in a big battle that takes a long time, you're the guy with the least amount of fatigue, and you will win out. Because these guys aren't going to automatically just rout right off hand. Sometimes the battles take a long time. The guys don't break them around. Maybe they have a lot of guys with high defense skill are just not getting hit, in which case the battles could go on for a long time, or spells which increase their defense of your guys and cause them not to be hitting or getting hit, etc., etc. Because, there's no guarantee that guys are going to be, not going to take a lot of damage or inflict a lot of damage. There are a whole lot of variable factors when you throw in spells, especially, or the types of units. So when those battles that last a long time, it's going to come down to fatigue as to who wins it. If your guys have a lot of fatigue, but your opponent had done something to minimize the amount of fatigue, having spells which give reinvigoration, or items which add reinvigoration, that will reduce the amount of fatigue each turn. There are ways of reinvigoration will reduce the amount of fatigue that it takes each turn. As encumbrance adds to it, reinvigoration subtracts from it. Reinvigoration is something that can be gotten from spells or special items. There is a ring of reinvigoration, which is one of those very powerful magic items that I like to have. There are certain other items that add there's shoes. There are mage shoes that add reinvigoration, and there are certain items which give reinvigoration. Those are always really good to give to your units in these slots. Like this thing can have a helmet and 2 rings. So you can put a ring of reinvigoration on this unit, for example, and you will see a reinvigoration little symbol appear down here when you do, and it will start subtracting from the fatigue each turn. So that's kind of how that works. Okay, so what other special units do we have? Let's take a look at this. The Bog Mummy. What do we got? Hit points 65. He's got Death and Blood. Okay, Blood. Well, what's the difference? Some people will say, what's the difference between Death and Blood? Well, Blood is the only scale in this game that's not a gem. The other 7 paths are actually gems. Blood is actually a blood slave. In this game, you get blood slave. You can think of them as virgin sacrifices. So if you get a bunch of them, that's how you get blood. You have to get blood slaves, and you have to get those. But there's some of the blood at some of the in the end game. I want to say the higher level summons some of the best units, the best summoning units. If you go down that path, are in the blood category, because some of the demons, like the ice devils and things, require blood. So I want to say probably the most powerful summoning guys, late game summoning units, are with the blood path. So that's why it is very useful. And of course, there are items. There are hundreds and hundreds of magic items. There are any and all combinations of items. There are items that require blood. There are items that require, say, blood and astral. There are some that may be nature and blood, like there's one, the vest of thorns, or what is it, the quivering thorns, or something like that. I think it's something like 5 blood and 2 nature or something. That's a very useful thing. But so a lot of items have combinations of paths that you need to get with them. Okay, this unit is a poor amphibian. So in this game, you got a fish symbol, which means it's aquatic and you can only stay underwater. Then there's an amphibian signal and an poor amphibian. Amphibian is the best because it can go on land and in water without penalties, so it can get the best of both worlds, water and land. Poor amphibian means that it can go underwater and on land. It's the same as a fib, but when it's attacking, I believe, they are somewhat impaired when fighting. Their movement is -4, attack is -3, defense -3, encumbrance +1. So they get some pretty significant penalties when attacking underwater. But they can go underwater. That by itself is a good thing, because it's kind of tough if you're a land nation, it's tough to go to underwater and vice versa. Although it can be done. It certainly can be done. It's just kind of tough because you got to get spells or items to do that. So I've already talked about fear, susceptible to fire. So there are units that are susceptible to fire. I think what it means is 5. So if a unit gets attacked, I think what it means, fire attacks will increase their damage. All fire attacks will have their damage doubled, but the extra damage cannot exceed this value. So it was 5. So the first 5 will be doubled. So let's say it does 15 fire damage, the first 5 will be doubled to 10, but the second, everything over 5, which was 10, it did 15, so that's 10, will be normal. So 10 plus 10 is 20. So 15, if this did 15 fire damage against this, will do 20 instead of 15. Extra damage cannot exceed this value. If sort of fire will most likely die, as will be very hard to quench. And also fire, one of the bad things about fire is it will, if you set fire to the guy, the fire will keep staying. He'll be lit a flame for several turns. There's a chance it'll burn out. I can't remember what the formula is, but there's a certain formula, and the chance of it will burning out, I think it's 100% will go out if it's raining. So when you're attacking, there's weather is taken. You may be attacking in snow, rain, fog, and of course there are spells that can increase that. And so basically logically intuitive things will take place. For if it's hot midsummer, it's less likely that the fire will go out and it'll last longer. If it's ice, cold out, it's more likely to go out. And if it's raining, I think it automatically goes out. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. He's cold resistant. We talked about that. We talked about poison resistant. He's undead, so he's considered an undead unit. So so an undead unit will also have this symbol. That means he will have this symbol. He's considered an undead. He can be led by an undead leadership. And this guy is just considered undead, and he can be affected by certain specialized attacks that priests have. Priests have some special attacks that can affect undead units and not other units. And there are a lot of special spells that priests have. Priests are like the opposite of undead, I mean, we'll say that. He's considered inanimate. Inanimates are dead, animated by strong magic. They lack life force, are unaffected by certain spells such as drain life, sleep, and polymorph. Okay, so they're not affected by certain spells. Need not eat, so that means he doesn't reduce your supplies. Immortal. Okay, this is an important thing that I learned in this game. One of the first when I first played this game, I thought Immortal was a really good thing, but it's not quite as good as you think. If you're in areas where you're Dominion, where you have Dominion, where you have a white candle, you will have your guy will be, if he dies, he will automatically come back. Nothing will happen to him. However, if he dies in an area where you don't have Dominion, it's actually not immortal. He can be called back, but he's treated like a normal, like any other god. So he's only immortal while he's in your Dominion. We'll say that. Snow Move, we talked about that, and Spirit Sight. I'm not sure what that is. Possible to see the spirit realm and see the essence of things. Okay, so I spent a lot of time talking about that. I probably went through most of the special abilities. Let's just touch on this last group down here. These are basically your human guys. They start out with Dominion 1, but these are the guys you usually want to create what's called the Rainbow Mage. If you look down here, it says New Magic Path. You can actually add another magic path. It only costs 10. So you could put, like, say I wanted to put if I wanted to have all 7 of the 8 paths, it would only cost me 70. 70 more points out of my starting points, and I can have 1 of everything. Of course, then I can start increasing them. And then what you would create is a guy called a Rainbow Mage, which is a guy has every path, or just about every path. And there is something to be said for those guys. They're more likely to find treasures for one thing, and they'll have a lot more spells that'll be available to them because they'll have spells from all the different things. They would be really good in the battlefield. Problem with these guys, they usually have really crappy hit points. I mean, look at the 0 protection attack. Well, obviously with these guys, you must buff them somehow in these slots to keep them alive, and that's the hard part. It really is the hard part. It's one of the reasons why I don't really like these guys for that. I have used them, and they could be incredibly. I've seen them do incredible stuff in battles with the range of spells, but they can fairly easily die, much more than other guys with the poor hit points. You got to buff them somehow. You must buff them. And it's not just with items, but with certain spells that can add defensive spells. You can script spells in this game, like invulnerability. There are different spells there are a whole lot. There are hundreds of spells. There are spells which add to your defense, etc. This is what these guys kind of need. And of course there are different ones. I mean, a great sage has a huge research ability, 22. So this guy would be a guy you just want to, put in a lab and just increase your research. I mean, 22 a turn, that is nice. Inspirational researcher, what is this? Unit will make everyone in this research faster. Wow. So he adds +1 to everyone else researching. I mean, think about that. If you got 20 guys researching, each one of those guys gets a +1. That could be huge. Adept researcher performs magic research that everyone else, +15. So I think what that happens when he's actually researching, I'm not sure if this 22 is after including this ability or not. I'm not sure. So is this 22 or is it 37? I think it goes up to 37 when you actually set him to research, I think is how it works. Okay, so that's what I spent a lot of time touching on these units. So you really want to look into them. Next thing I want to do is I want to get my guy, talk about what I'm going to build and why. I'm going to be building the Idol of Man. And I'm gonna set him in prison because I want those extra 350 points. Like I said, I'm playing on a 225. I'm looking for the long term, not the short term. I want to add this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add to his things. I'm going to run these up. I also want to add. I did want to add. What do you call it? Earth. Remember, these guys added the new magic path on these guys cost 40. So ramping this up to 1 subtracted another 40 from my total number of points. As of now, I got 505 points available. I want to run him up to 5 nature, 4 earth, 2, 3, 4, 4 water, 4 air, 2, 3, 4, 4 fire. No, 7 fire. It was 7 fire, 4, 4. I also want to add 4 water, 4 earth. 7 fire, 4 air, 4 water, 4 earth, and 5 nature. I am going for a blessed strategy, a major, huge blessed strategy, which is what I'm going to talk about in a minute. So that's all of his points. I'm sorry, that's not all of his points, but those are all the points I'm going to put in his paths. I am going to take a big hit in the drain. Okay, these things I want to increase. One thing about online that I've learned is you really want to have a lot of gold. It is really, really, really easy to run out of cash in this game. So I am going to run up the Dominion. I am going to run up the growth and death scales up. Notice each one added 4% to my income, so I'm at plus 12. And it added 10% each. I ran it up 3 times, and it added my growth. Growth is how much reproduction your population is reproducing. Notice I'm at minus 15. I got to start taking hits now. I'm going to take a minus 3 in drain. Yeah, I know that's really bad. I'm going for an early non-traditional rush. Like I like to play unorthodox strategies that people don't normally do, and I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to talk more of it when I start, but I am not using a rush guy at all. As a matter of fact, I got an imprisoned guy, but I am going to be doing a rush strategy, which I will talk about when it comes. But I also am playing for the long term, so I want my scales up. These guys, their natural scale is 3 cold because they're Neifelheim. They will like the cold, so I want to keep that at 3. I want my growth scale set at 3. I'm taking a really big hit in my magic. My magic guys are reduced by 3 when researching. So, for example, a lot of my researchers are 12. 12 minus 3 is 9. That I'm going to be getting for some of my researchers. I believe the Scratty and the Geisha. Okay, I want the other thing I want to do is I want to get my Dom up to 6 Dominion. I want to have at least 6. I got 84 left. I'm going to take 1 order and turmoil. Well, let me flash over. If you notice down here in the bottom, it tells you what it does. Well, order effects. What it does, it adds a certain amount. I right offhand, I can't remember. It doesn't say on the bottom, does it? It added to my order and it reduced the chance of random events happening. I want to take 1 productivity. That's going to add to resources. Resources are important. I also use a lot of resources, so I want to have at least 1 more on there. Wow, and that was my hour already? God, I set it to an hour for my first episode. So, that's basically how I wanted to set it. So I only have 4 left, which I'm going to lose. They don't carry over in any kind of way. It would be nice if they took those 4, they, let's say, added 4 times 10 is 40 gold or something small, or maybe 4 gems. 4 points, add 4 gems, so you're not totally losing leftovers. So I'm going to go with that as my guy. So I'm going to click OK. You have 24 bless points. 24 oh, right. I almost forgot. I almost forgot. Oh, for God's sake, it went it went back to the beginning. Okay, I don't know why it did that. Completely went to the beginning, but I knew what I wanted. I wanted 7. I forgot to put my bless. I need to do that. Forgot to talk about the bless. 2, 3, 4. Got carried away with the bell. 3. Put 3, 2, 3, 1, 1, 5, 6. Okay. Okay, so right here, we got bless point. All these things that I added also add what are called bless points. And this is one of the things that I really, really, really liked about Dominions 5, which was an incredible. One of the things that I really added versus the Dominions 4 was this whole bless thing. It added this unbelievably huge grouping of bless effects. In the other game, there were only 2 for each one. There was one at 4, a minor bless at 4, and a major one at level 9. So if you ran for example, if you ran up to major 9, now they added all the in-betweens. And they added, so you got a huge number of options, which is so freaking cool, and it was really, really smart. I really loved it. It created virtually an unlimited combination of different things that you can go to for your bless. And I like that. I really, 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 really like that. So I'm going to try to go, I don't want to go completely quickly through this, because I want to explain what my strategy is. Bless is in, for those of you that don't know what it is. Bless, you have certain guys that are sacred. When you bless a guy that's sacred, he gets special abilities. These are the extra special abilities that you get from being blessed. Of course, you have the option of not even doing a bless strategy or doing a major, as I have. I'm going for a major bless strategy versus a virtually non-existent bless strategy and everything in between. If I wanted to start an awake god, for example, pretender, and got 0 points, I would have significantly fewer points if I even had anything to add to a bless. But I decided to go the other way, and I am doing a bless strategy, not even using a rush that's designed it up for a rush attack versus with a not rush unit. Notice I took a dormant, if you remember, I took a dormant marble god that doesn't even move, and I'm ramping up the bless effect. So what I am going to go for, first of all, is awe. Awe is an incredibly powerful effect. Awe used to be under Dominion. You would have to go up to Dominion 9 or 10 to get the awe effect, but in Dominion 5 they put it into fire for whatever reason. I mean, it's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's a little easier to get to. But what awe does, if your guy has awe in melee combat, it's got to be in melee combat, and if somebody's trying to attack him, to strike him, they have to take a morale check. If they fail the morale check, they don't attack. So anytime somebody attacks a guy with awe, they have to roll a morale check, and if they fail, they just don't attack. They won't attack him that turn, which is cool. It's like you can't be damaged if you don't get hit. If a guy doesn't swing at you, you can sit there and swing all day long, but if you're failing your morale check, you're not going to attack a guy. I like that. I want to go with, I want 2 on my precision. I'm going to take 2 precision. Notice I got 1 level of precision. I can actually take 2 precision. See where it says 2 precision? So I'm going to get bonuses to my arrows, archers, and my mages that are using spells. I want to take swiftness in the air. What does swiftness does? Blessed units will run with the speed of the wind. Movement speed plus 30% movement rate. They're more likely to strike first in combat. So what's the advantage of that? My guys will be able to charge up really quick if I send them to attack right away, would minimize the amount of, hopefully the amount of damage I'm going to take from archers, because they're going to be able to move real quick. Cavalry that are moving around the flanks are going to move 30% faster. Anything moving around the flanks, anything is moving on the bat 30% faster. So that's what I get from that. I have a lot more points. Okay, so what is the next thing I want? I'm going to take, I wanted to take defense skill. Defense skill. Okay, so what is defense skill? Defense skill gave +2 to my defense. I've already talked about defense, so I'm not going to talk any more to that. 2 times reinvigoration. Okay, so I talked about reinvigoration before. What is? Oh, see, this is interesting. Reinvigoration is now under. It's actually under. It used to be under nature, but now it's actually under Earth, which is very interesting. So I'm going to go two. I want two of those. Oh, for God's sake, I clicked it off, didn't I? Okay, I got to click under reinvigoration, add bless reinvigoration. Okay, so we got 2 times reinvigoration. So each one adds 1 reinvigorate. I got 2, so it's going to add 2. So all my blessed units are going to reinvigorate. They're going to get -2 to my fatigue every turn. This is huge. Reinvigoration, I cannot underestimate how important that is. So that's what reinvigoration. What else did I want to get? Recuperation. Yes, recuperation. Just right down here. Okay, so what does recuperation do? There are chances in this game when you're in battle or otherwise for guys to get, they refer to them as ailments. What are ailments? For example, in combat, you can there's chances of getting cutting off a guy's arm, a guy's leg, getting hit in the eye, losing an eye, all kinds of weird little things. Mute, being what is the one? Extra afraid, which is -5 to morale. They're all called ailments. I think that the chance in combat is for each hit, each percentage of the hit. If you hit a guy in melee combat, the amount of damage you do is the percentage chance of getting an ailment. So, for example, let's say I do 2 damage points against a guy that has 10. Well, what is 2 versus 10? That's 20%. 2 of 20 is 20%, right? 2 out of 10 is 20. So there's a 20% chance of getting an ailment if you hit, and it's more likely the ailment is based on the area that you hit. If you hit him in the arm, you're more likely to chop off an arm. If you hit him in the leg, you're more likely. If you hit him in the torso, you're more likely to get a gaping, gaping chest wound or something. And all those things are bad. What recuperation does is and normally those things can't be removed except under special circumstances. There are certain units that can heal. Certain nations have a better than ordinary healing. Unfortunately, Neifelheim is not one of those. They don't have any good healing units. So recuperation will make up for that to some extent. So it can eliminate some of those ailments that you over time, which is a really good thing because those ailments are really, really bad. Really, some of them, because they just don't go away. For example, a gaping chest wound, that could reduce your hit points by 5. I think it reduces your protection and your defense. Similarly, one arm, now you can only hold one weapon. I think it increases your encumber. They all are really, really bad to your stat lines. So I want some way of eliminating them, and hence the recuperation. So we're going to add another bless effect. I don't have, well, I'm almost done. I'm just going to add Winter's Gift, which is an okay thing. All sacred units disregard movement from cold. Okay, and that's fine because I plan on doing my main offensives in the cold, so I'm going to have my greatest speed in the cold. So that is my guy. That is my guy. That is my guy with all of the bless points. So we're going to I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to change my name. Change my God's name. He is going to be named what else? Corporal Kindel, my username. Okay, Corporal Kindel. Okay, so we got all praise Corporal Kindel. Okay, well, I'm gonna get to the point where I'm just starting the game, and I will end this episode because it went way over an hour. I did a lot of explanation. I'm gonna set this the way I like to set it. I'm gonna set the independence to 9. I like strong independence. So your independents are not, you aren't going to be able to just rush all over them. They're going to be extra strong. And this is extra strong for everybody. So it's going to affect everybody equally, the human player and the AIs. So what'll happen is that you can create an awake, blessed guy. The chances of him dying if you don't do things right are much higher. They're going to be running up into more opposition than normal. That's what that does. These things I'm going to leave at the default, the recruitment multiple, supply multiple. You can change it so there's more or less supply, more or less recruitment ability, more or less resources. I'm going to keep those at the default. Random events are rare. Okay, I'm going to enable story events. I mean, that's okay. I mean, that's not going to have, it's going to add a little bit of color to the game, but it's not going to change the game. I'm going to enable the score events. Hall of Fame entries, I want 15. And they actually increased it in this game. You can go 10, 15, 20. I'm going to ramp it up to 15. Certain guys will get such, if they kill enough guys, they'll be like the top 15. Guys they'll have some special abilities. I like that. It doesn't break the game or anything. It's just a cool thing to have, I think. Global enchantment slots 5. I'm going to keep it like it was. I'm going to put no limited unique I'm going to put no limit on that. Unique items are those global items that are in construction level 8. And what this means, I set it to no rate. What this means is if it was on limited unique, all that means is you could only forge at most 1 a turn. If you had enough resources, if you could forge 3 of them a turn, you'd only be able to build 1 a turn. But there's no rate. If you had enough resources to actually build 3, and they are very expensive, you could build all 3 of them. I don't have a problem with that. It's just really not going to affect the game. I mean, if you have that many resources, I don't see why you should be limited on your ability to forge. You can only build 1 of them anyway because they are unique items. Normal for me, standard, no. I do not like standard. I am going to set it to very difficult. This is just one of those settings that it's a global setting for me that I do in every single game when I have the option. I do not like easy research, and this is just a personal preference on my part. So, for example, what this does is it ramps up the cost of every level has gone up significantly. I don't know what the exact amount is, but for example, the first level of spells normally costs 50 research point to get to the first level. With very difficult, that first level is 200. So they quadrupled. Basically, it's quadrupled the cost to get to every. So you're not going to be seeing powerful spells for a long time, and that's fine. It's going to increase the length of time that just bare combat units are going to have before getting into the and I'm playing like I said, I'm playing a 225 province game against 15. That's how I like it. I don't want to be at max out research after 4 years because I just don't want to. I want to be able to have research going the entire game. Conversely, because I'm also set my research level low, so this is going to make it double difficult on me, but I've got a plan to overcome that. Okay, random start research, I'm going to take that off, and apparently this is something new that they added in DOM 5. You can start with 1 whole level completed, and it just randomly gives you 1 level and 1 thing. I personally don't really like that. I'd rather just divide the amount of points among all of them evenly. So if you're starting with 50 research points, it'll just take those 50 and divide them among the is it 7 or 8 schools? So you'll have 7 or 8 points in each of the things. Thrones of Ascension. Okay, so let's click on that. What do we got? Victory by Thrones of Ascension. I'm going to click on all. Oh, okay, it's only one or the other, isn't it? I wouldn't mind enabling all of them, frankly. That's usually what I do. But apparently you have to choose one or the other. You can only have one. So we'll do the Thrones of Ascension. So you got to conquer a certain number of these Thrones of Ascension. And what are they? Total number of 11, 7, 14, 16 Ascension points required. Level 2. So that means there are 2 level 2, 7 level 1, and you need 7? I believe. There are no level 3s. I wonder if you can actually increase that. I mean, I'm just curious. Okay, you can. 5. Level 2. I'm just playing around here for no good reason. 4. It was 763. Total number of Ascension points 12. Okay, I just increased it by 1. I guess it's no real, no big deal. There's 225 provinces. We've got a total of we got 6-3, and there are no level 3. Okay, no level 3. Fine. 6-3 times 2 is 6. You need to take 12 to win. Total number of Ascension points 12. And you need 7 out of 12. So that's just a little bit over 50. That's just a tad over 50. You got to take half of them. That's fine. I mean, I don't have that. I mean, that's good enough. That is good enough. So we'll set it that way. So I need to remember that 7 are required. 7 points are required. Some of the thrones are worth 2, but most of them are worth 1. Okay, so we'll click OK. So I am going to put renaming allowed. I am actually going to be naming some of my guys, and that's okay. A few of them at the start. Eventually, probably won't worry about it. But so we're going to set that there. That's how I'm going to set it. We're going to click OK, and it'll generate the world. Okay, so we are generating the world. Once I generate the world, I'm going to end this first episode. And we'll start there because it's went way too long. I know it went over an hour. I hope that's okay for you guys. I did a lot of explanation. I mean, I wanted to give some kind of explanation to some of the new people so they'll have an idea of what's going on, what's to look at, how important things like reinvigoration are, and encumbrance, and what supply does, and just the basic combat system, what defense and attack and those things are, and what the bless things are in a general way. What to look through. Have some kind of plan on what they're doing. I haven't really talked about my plan as much because I haven't generated the map in our unit, but I will in the next episode. So you want to look at your nations and everything else and see what you have. And really look at all the different things. Have an idea of what all those things are. I think I gave a pretty reasonably good overview of what all those stats are. I hope there's none that I missed. I mean, everything from precision to encumbrance, leadership, all those things. Reinvigoration, encumbrance, defense, attack, and then the strength. Strength adds to your damage if you hit, plus the weapon damage. Very important. Fatigue is incredibly important to this game. I mean, I learned that the hard way. A couple of things I learned the hard way. Fatigue and the idea of fatigue, encumbrance, reinvigoration. The other thing I learned the hard way was a supply multiple. Okay, so these just tell you that just gives you an overview of anything. I don't really need to. It just gives you a backstory overview. So we're ready to start. Corporal Kindel, the god of Neifelheim. Spring in the year 0. So we're starting in year 0, and it's spring. Remember, each month, there are 12 turns to a month, so there's 12. Each turn is a month. It's divided into early, late. So there's a spring, there's an early spring, and then there's a late spring. And it goes that way for everything. A fall, an early fall, a late fall. A winter, an early winter, a late winter. A summer, an early summer, late summer. That's how they are. That is how the game is divided. Okay, so I'm just going to. You can see that it's scrolling. I go up. The map is just completely once I get up here, I'm going to appear down here at the bottom. Okay, so there is a map wrap around, and I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard to just scroll around a little bit. So what is our map? We got a big ocean right here in the middle, and that's cool. An ocean right here, sort of in the middle. I can go either. If I go off this side, I'm appearing here, and if I go off this side, I'm appearing here. So that you can see the wraparound pretty well. You know, you can easily see the wraparound. So I am surrounded. Actually, I like this. I am completely surrounded by provinces, which is cool. I don't like being adjacent to a water province. I'm glad they put me even better. They put me next to one of these thrones. How convenient. Okay, this episode has went a really, really long time, so we're gonna call it here. But it's probably gonna take me 6 hours once I edit this to upload it on YouTube. I don't even want to see what it is. So let's go on. I actually had it set up in Winnowize mode, didn't I? But that's fine. Okay, because it was mostly just a setup screen. So we're on Winnomize mode. I'm going to the OBS, and I'm going to stop there. So this has been Corporal Kindel on as Neifelheim on Impossible against 15 opponents. And this is episode 1. I hope everybody tunes in for episode 2, and I hope you have a great day. Have a nice day, and I hope you liked the video. Please comment on what you liked, didn't like, etc., etc., etc. This is my second playlist that I've ever made, so I consider myself still in the YouTube learning experience. And my first being Stars and Shadow, 4X space game similar to Masters of Orion that just came out last year. Those of you that like this game would probably like that game too. So we're going to end there. Take it easy, and I will see you all for the next episode. Take it easy. Bye.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor?